Hello, I'm Simon and I'm a misfit.
And I'm Adam and I'm a misfit too.
So why do we call ourselves misfits? Well, personally, I never felt like I was put on this world for any specific reason. You look at history's famous names like Mozart or Leonardo da Vinci, or even in more recent times, Michael Jackson. All of these people have been, they as children knew exactly what their calling was, and they had a particular talent that drove their life forward. I've always envied people like this, and it's not necessarily the huge greats like the names I listed, but even people at school who seemed to know what their calling was in life. They knew they were going to be a doctor, or they knew they were going to be an artist. So I felt like I've never had this, and while I can fit into anything, I really need to work hard at it. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, when I was a small kid, I loved art, and I believed that I was going to be an artist. But then I started school, and I saw that there were these people like the Mozarts and the Michael Jacksons that had this natural ability, and I didn't feel and I didn't believe that I did have this natural ability, so I had to go a different way with my life.
Yeah, I'm the same. When I was a kid, I used to love drawing, I used to love making things with my hands, and by the time I got to about 14, 15, I remember comparing myself with other kids at school who were, I felt, much more talented than me. And I even remember telling myself at that age that, okay, I'm not cut out to be a creative person. Like, I'm kidding myself. There are so many better people out there than me. So I took a very different turn in life, a turn with zero creativity. And I grew up as an adult feeling very intimidated by the idea of even drawing a picture, let alone making a painting or a sculpture. And I know that there's lots of people who put themselves in this category as well. They feel intimidated by the idea of doing art because they feel like they're not an artist. So there are 19 of us living here, and we've come across this new way of doing art, which is called collective art. And what it means, it's everyone coming together, sharing in ideas, inspiration, techniques, methods, in a way that absolutely anybody can do art. So all of the fits or the misfits, the talented, the untalented, absolutely everybody, regardless of how talented or creative they think they are, can make amazing sculptures. So this all started a couple of years ago. We came across some videos on YouTube, videos which were outlining how to make cement sculptures. They were instructional videos. And we were really inspired by this. And we said to ourselves, let's give it a go, let's try. So the first couple of sculptures, I remember it was so frustrating understanding how to go about it. Even though there were some instructional videos that we saw, I got a general idea that we needed to use metal mesh and some ideas about how to use cement, but nothing really that allowed us to make anything in any structured, coherent way. And as a result, any sculpture we made in the early days took us months, absolutely months to make.
I remember my first sculpture. I made a Birdbath, and I struggled with this sculpture. I had a ton of fun doing it, but it took me 2 or 3 months. And then the finished product had things falling off it, and I had to repair it a bunch of times. And I remember throughout the process of me making this Birdbath, I would look on YouTube and there would be absolutely nothing, or if there was something, it was for somebody that was an amazing artist, or it was just a very simple instruction for a simple project.
My third sculpture, it was a very ambitious sculpture. It's a life-size angel modeled off my dimension. Now, this was really ambitious because it was the first time I decided to do a human body, and even though it turned out fine, it turned out really good. It took me 3-4 months to make, with many countless hours and late nights, and I had so many frustrating parts of it. For example, when I was doing the face, I didn't know how to go about making a face, the reference points and the proportions. And when I installed the head on the actual sculpture, the thing looked ridiculous. It looked hideous.
It was ugly.
It was bad. I had to cut it off and start again. So there were so many cases like this. I mean, it turned out great, but it took a long time with a lot of frustration. In YouTube, there's all kinds of instructional videos. I mean, you're a carpenter. Have you found clear step-by-step carpentry instructions on YouTube.
YouTube was my school. Like if I needed to build something and I didn't quite know how to do it, or if I needed to tile a bathroom and I'd never tiled a bathroom before, I knew I could go to YouTube, I could find a step-by-step video that would like bring me through the whole project. But when it came to like cement sculpting, there was just nothing out there.
But the thing is, all 19 of us here have lived the same story when it comes to sculpting. We've all had our own little tricks that we've invented, our own ways of doing things, our own methods, but this is not the point of it. I mean, humanity is all about learning from one another. So in the same way, we have combined everything that we've learned and created a way that absolutely anybody can use to make amazing sculptures every time. This is why we're making these videos.
Yeah, and we've made thousands of mistakes, but we definitely this is the great thing about this process is we've taken everything that's worked from 19 people, which is like 150 different methods, and combined them and made a simple step-by-step video so you guys at home don't have to struggle like we have.
The plan is we're going to make a life-size sculpture of an old pensioner, a man who's sitting down on a rock feeding birds from his hand. So we'll have a sculpted bird on his hand and another sculpted bird on his shoulder. We're going to start from scratch, but we're going to divide the sculpture into 8 main parts. So the 8 steps are going to be the head, the torso, the arms, the legs, hands, feet, butt, and thighs, basically. But we're going to use Adam for our dimensions. And as we do this, we're going to show you how to do the measurements so that the work that you do is correct and proportional and looks realistic.
So the first thing we're going to need is one 50-pound bag of cement. You can get this at any local hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's. It's going to cost you around $5. The second thing we're going to need is 2 50-pound bags of sand, and make sure it's a very fine sand. It's going to cost you around $6. Now, for the structure of our sculptures, like the internal structure, we're going to need galvanized mesh, and we need it in 2 dimensions. Number 1 is the 1-inch mesh, and make sure it's 19 gauge. Now, you can go a little bit thicker and a little bit thinner, but don't go extremely thick or extremely thin. You go too thick, it's going to be hard to bend, and if you go too thin, it's going to be brittle and it's not going to be able to hold much cement or much weight. Now, the second one is the 1/4-inch mesh, and this is going to be our finishing mesh that we're going to put over everything else. And like I said, make sure that they're both galvanized, because the cement will give off a moisture and it will make your mesh very, very rusty.
Yeah, and the gauge for this guy is 23 gauge, so 19 and 23. And there was something else I wanted to say about this. Yes, it's also called hardware cloth.
You're going to want about 10 feet of each type, the 1-inch and the 1/4-inch. And that's going to cost you like $15 for the 1-inch and $20 for the 1/4-inch.
Thereabouts, yeah. So if you sum that up for the materials, we're looking at less than $50 to get started.
A cheap and easy way to make a beautiful sculpture.
Tools. So the tools you'll need when working with the metal. First, a set of tin snips. These can come as little as about $10. And this is for cutting the metal mesh and cutting wire if you're using wire. The other thing you're going to need, these are very, very useful. These are a set of plier cutters. They can cost anywhere from about $5 upwards. And one small set of needle nose pliers. This is a 5-inch set of pliers with a very, very fine needle nose. I recommend finding the finest needle nose you can find on the market, because this makes it easier when working with the fine mesh. So that's it in terms of working with the metal. When it comes to working with cement, we have spatulas, or putty knives they're also called. You can buy a 3-pack, I've seen them online for like $10. There's small spatulas that we use for the finer cement. They come in various shapes and sizes, but I've seen a 5-pack, for example, on Amazon for as little as $2 or $3, and you're fine with a really cheap set of these. You don't need to splash out and get an expensive set. We need surgical gloves. It's not good to make your hands come into contact with the cement. It's a corrosive material, so if you have some gloves, this is going to be great for protecting your hands. And this is basically it in terms of materials. These sum up to less than $50 if you're buying the cheapest on the market, and the cheapest are fine.
And so your first project is going to cost you about $100. But the good thing is once you make the initial investment and all the tools, you can take $50 off your next project. And
you also have tools for the house if you don't already have them,
which
which are useful for all kinds of uses. Yeah. So that's basically it. That's all we wanted to cover in the first video. As we go through the next parts, we're going to give specific instruction around measurement and tactics and methods for working with mesh and working with cement. That's all we have to say for now. Stay tuned. The next video, we're going to actually do the metal construction to make a head.
I'm Adam, I'm a misfit.
And I'm Simon, I'm a misfit too.
Come be a misfit with us.